Um,
Right. So here we are. I guess we're going to pick up with the first session as the Calamari Localization discussion. Jian is here to lead that discussion, and I think Lee may be joining us in a little bit. But Jian, did you want to tell us a little bit about your blueprint?
oh, okay. Hello, everyone. My blueprint is about localization of Calamari. After Calamari opening its source code, I will try to deploy the Calamari on Ubuntu process. So um, currently, Calamari can provide monitor view, OSD management, for management, and log information, and so on other functions. But the log file in the server I deployed is empty, so I'm not sure what kind of the information it logs. So maybe later I can see it. With Ceph is more and more stable, it will be widely used, I think. So there will be more and more people to participate Ceph in China. Calamari has a monitor with a large-scale cluster of Ceph. It has a significant effect, I think. But by localization of Calamari, we can monitor our Ceph application. Improve management. On other hand, we can spread Calamari, and more people interested in Ceph will know Calamari. And also, we may purposes manage our Ceph cluster on Tianhe platform.
So Sage or Gregory, we probably want to find out what the best way to go about the localization stuff would be.
So, I mean, there's naturally the kind of best choice for that is get text. Are you familiar with get text?
Currently, I will familiar with the framework and the code of Calamari, because I also deployed it, but the code of a learning related program language, then I can focus on the localization related code of Calamari and translate it to as
right. So I can say that localization is not something we prioritized in the beginning. So it's something that we'd love to have help with from the community, and we haven't really done a whole lot with it so far.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I think the only thing I would want to make sure that we do is that any localization effort is done in a easily replicated, generalized way, so that we can slot in all the different languages, right? So it's a one-time effort to sort of modify the code. And I assume that's what getText does, but I've never.
Right. So right, getText, yeah, that's right. So getText is basically a situation where you wrap the messages that you want to translate in a function, and then it takes that and throws it to a template, essentially, where it takes the host language and then gives you the translation where there are translations. Does that make sense?
It uses the English message as a key to look up the language that you've got selected at the time and replace the text there. which is
that's right, Dan.
Kind of goofy, but what you do from a source modification point of view is usually modify the text where it's got a literal string to have a function call to a literal string, and then there are tools that go and extract it out and create that database.
Mm-hmm.
Then translators create matching messages in the databases for every language you want to port to. So it's made to be super, do the hard work once and then do the translations incrementally.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if you go and you change the English language string? I mean, this could be like an entire sentence, right?
That's why
absolutely.
That's why you leave the function call behind, so that you know that you're going to have to go modify the databases when you do that.
I see. Okay. And then make check would probably go and complain loudly if you missed something. Yeah.
Yeah, and
right.
the idea there too is that if you implement it right, then your fallback is you still get the English, which is a suboptimal solution, but at least it's not like nothing.
It's the default, yeah. If it can't look up in the PO file, then it's always falling back to the English version. So if you have untranslated things, you may end up in mix-up between Chinese and English, but it's at least working. So.
I see. Okay.
Right. So I guess from a standpoint of how we'd want to go forward with doing this would be, we'd have to cut the tickets to actually choose which pieces that we're going to be translating. And then after, and then after we have that structure in place of the pieces that make sense to translate, then we have to engage the community to provide the actual mappings. But the community could also do the work to provide the translation. But that's a larger discussion of which parts make sense, because traditionally, when you're taking stuff from kind of a deep technical domain like Ceph, you can lose some of the meaning of the domain-specific language. For example, OSDs, pools, PGs. When you're talking about the relationships of those, you can lose some of the meaning by translating that. Mm-hmm. So I guess step one is decide which pieces make sense.
Yeah, the sort of state of the world at Sun in a past life was that applications got translated and kernel messages never did, because kernel messages were just too much like the kind of thing you would want to put in a Google search.
Right. And that's kind of what I'm saying is there's pieces that we will want to translate absolutely, and pieces that we don't.
Right. So what are those pieces that we want to focus on initially?
Yeah, that's a good.
I mean, I guess the idea there would be, in my opinion, the place. Hold on a second. Let me offload this kid.
It's one of those things where we could use help from someone who's done this before, because it's a little bit of an art choosing which messages really should be and which shouldn't. Dana, do you have any experience in this area, being a non-English speaker, I assume? Have you ever dealt with the translation stuff at all?
Yeah, but not with Python related code. Yeah.
Well, assuming we can figure out the technical details, it's more a question of how much of the interface ought we translate and how much of it ought we leave literal. Having a kind of a feel for that, the kind of artistic part of it, I guess.
It's a good question. I wouldn't translate any messages coming from stuff you may later want to debug, or you want to forward to somebody, but everything that's stuff like menu or something like that, you can translate, but I wouldn't translate too much messages from Ceph. So.
It occurs to me that Red Hat may well have a lot of experience in this area, and we might be able to consult with them about this. It's the kind of thing that requires a little bit of specialization.
I also guess if the tool is coming up into, for example, Red Hat or SUSE, they also will translate it if it's important enough. So they also have technical teams to translate technical terms in the correct translation. So I would say they can help if the community is not able to do it. So.
I mean, my take on that is definitely the pieces that kind of describe the UI, right, in the less technical sense, are probably the place that you want to start providing the translation, so people can understand how Calamari relates to Ceph and what you can do with Calamari.
Yeah.
But that's probably the boundary there when you start getting into the actual details of the Ceph cluster, and that drawing that line is the hard part.
Yeah, is it possible with getText to leave certain key things behind as well, like translate, meaning for OSD monitor, whatever, but leave it parenthetically cited so that you can match it in the low-level messages? So that when you see like a PG dump, you can see the literal PG to PG match between English and the low-level message, but still have a meaningfully translated thing of what this is next to it?
I'm not familiar
enough
enough
for individual words.
Yeah, I'm not familiar enough with it to comment on that.
Yeah, I would be worried about touching things like PG states or anything you'd see in a PG dump as like a number or a sort of low-level string that you wouldn't want to mess with.
Yeah.
But
Xian, do you follow along with this? Do you agree with the idea of using getText? Does that make sense? Is that a reasonable approach?
Yes.
Okay.
So I may ask some issues. One is there some localization resource file, just like a PO file.
PO file. Yeah, we're not doing anything with that yet. That would be a result of inserting getText calls, I think.
Yeah, so that would be the first step, right? To figure out how to add the infrastructure to do this, to do the getText everywhere.
Yeah, maybe the first step is to start looking at screenshots and marking them up in terms of this ought to be translated and this should not, kind of thing. Because I feel certain that the technical stuff is soluble and straightforward, but
yeah, there's been plenty of people that have implemented getText in Python, in Django. That's not the problem. I think the start point is really what needs to be translated and what not.
Oh, okay.
And of course, you need to be able to actually see Calamari 1.2 to start on that process, which we're getting there. Although the code is there and some people are running it. John, are you able to run 1.2, John?
Are there other projects that are relatively narrow in scope that are just easy examples of how to do the first step?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I bet if you get on GitHub and search for .po, you'll find it.
And I pasted 2 links to and how to at least one of them.
Suggest
建议嘛，就是哪些可以，yes.
And there are so many examples on how to do that in the web, so it's simply Google for it.
Okay.
Very easy.
Okay.
Yes, I deployed it, and I can look at the screen screens about the dashboard manager and the graphics. But currently, I only translated the login screen. Yes.
Right, and that one's kind of obvious because it's the first thing that you see, and so you would definitely want to translate user and password and login. But that's a good start, and that's the kind of thing that I think would sort of get the effort moving along. Maybe we could do something like create a Git repo that contains localization notes for Calamari and store screenshots there with annotations.
I was going to say, Gregory, do you and John have a preferable way of kind of communicating this and canonical location for it?
So yeah, I mean, I think the canonical location could be just Git's usually a pretty bad place to store large screenshots. So we probably wouldn't want to put them there if it wasn't actually code.
Well, there's gist, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we could use Google Drive for screenshots or something like that. Do we have anything community facing that solves that problem?
Just the wiki would be the only thing that I can think of where you can attach things, and that is probably not a viable solution.
All right. Well, I mean, we could even just share, image or links from the start.
I mean, really what you want to do is you want to take a series of screenshots and then just have like a highlighter, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's have that be the first thing. I'd definitely be happy to create screens if you guys want to mark them up, or if you want to make them and send them along. I think getting the conversation started is probably the important part. I don't think we can necessarily do that in real time here, but
maybe we could ask our social media representative to create us a graphical collaboration site of some sort.
Yeah. Ross, do you know any places to collaborate or version images? You're more of an image geek than I am.
I mean, Google Docs probably is the right place. I mean, you can definitely import images and mark them up there. It doesn't have to be the ink tank Google Apps area. It can just be public Google Docs.
Yeah. Okay, Jen, does that work for you?
Maybe, Gian, Gregory can go through the UI first, identify the things that should be translated first, and that should get you started. Does that sound good?
Okay.
All right.
Actually, I was kind of thinking maybe that she might have the better idea of what should be translated than we would. Just in terms of, it would confuse me if this weren't in my language, but this I understand is a Ceph term and it should be left alone. That sort of judgment call is easier when you're not an English speaker.
I was thinking more from the point of view of the Calamari guys know what is sacrosanct, given what kinds of things can be manipulated.
We can change anything.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
So, all right, but I think as long as we keep it on the blueprint or linked from the blueprint, that way it's kind of a canonical resource regardless of where we point things at. That probably is key.
Or the Etherpad. Is there? I mean, are you guys thinking dump all the images into like a Google Word doc or whatever, or Is that right? Is that what you're thinking? And then you can edit images in a document. I'm not actually sure what.
We usually
Google
use
have a photo.
we use Draw usually, which is their basic, Photoshop PC Paint type thing. And we usually make it. Yeah, it's got text boxes and all arrows and stuff.
Okay, so this is gonna be like dozens of images. Is that all going like one big document, or do you have like a?
Well, dozens of images. The Calamari's got 4 main screens, and then there's a couple of modals. So I wouldn't expect it to be large at first, and we can iterate that as we go. It's the first step.
Yeah.
I'm asking now in chat, but obviously the problem with Google Drive is the firewall. So we should make sure that Jian is actually able to get to Google Drive and access Google Draw, if that's what we're going to do.
Great point, Patrick.
这个你要用英文版的一个 C 那个它这个 pad 没有弄好。
你怎么弄的？
现在弄不了，你要把是弄成个英文版。
It comes current sort and sort and.
说的这个嘛，你说这个可以吗？然后。有人说他会截一些图放在上面。
我知道，但是我看不见啊。
Google Access、Google Drive 可以访问。
Google Drive。
你只要分享就可以访问。
Yes, I can able to access Google Drive, but if you mean you take some screenshots?
There is a test. Can you access that? Can anyone?
Yes, I. 我字典。
以前的分享的了。
没有。
你分享，你我出来。我这里没办法上网。
Wait a minute.
Dan just pasted a test link to make sure that you be able to get to it. But it sounds like he has access to Google Drive. So.
Yeah. I did some tours to access the Google Drive. So later I will be look at it. I will be access it and see it.
Okay, great.
I can access it. I'm sure, but currently I need some tools.
Cool. Okay.
I have last questions. Then I can see currently Calamari only support 256 laws. Just now. Yes.
256 what?
OSDs.
256 laws.
Hosts?
Yep, that's going to be a problem for Jenny.
Yeah.
Is there a plan to support more OSDs? Because we have deployed more than 2,000 OSDs in our Tensor platform. So if it only support 256, we need more OSDs to monitor. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. 1.3 video will be support more OSDs. Yes.
Yes, that's the idea there. Not the coming release, sadly.
Will that be an unlimited? Do we have like a scalable way to do that, or is it going to be capped at some higher number?
It has not been designed.
Okay.
So the problem is that the widget needs to be just sort of redesigned entirely, right?
Yeah, we may need to rethink exactly how we visualize that at all, because you get into thousands and no widget is going to really handle it the way it does now in the model it does now.
I mean, I think the high level goal, for me at least, was to have some sort of hierarchical view. So, I mean, ideally something based on the crush map or something like that, so you can see like, oh, everything in that rack is down, or a whole row is down, or just an outlier OSD, something like that, so you can drill in that way.
Use the Google Earth API.
Right. So, I mean, that's definitely work that we're doing right now, is getting the idea of crush kind of deep into Calamari.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Jen, did you have other concerns or things that you wanted to touch on? So we will be scaling beyond 256 nodes in 1.3, but we aren't sure how it's going to happen yet. That's still being designed. But beyond that, do you have other questions for Calamari?
Currently, I can't see any information in logs. So, I want to know what's the I want to know what kind of information will logs. Is there any error diagnosis?
So are you looking for additional information from the OSDs themselves in terms of error reporting and things like that?
Yes.
Okay. Gregor, are we looking to expose a deeper level or more information for the individual OSDs themselves?
So the answer for 1.2 about, say, more OSD stats was we didn't bring a whole lot of them across because that's just a lot of data to be sending to one small Calamari node, and we prioritized the decision that we haven't waded through the sea of OSD stats. The kind of sentiment we have, or thinking, our plan is we're going to whitelist specific ones in the future. We haven't chosen them yet. So if you have ones that you love, we'd love to hear what they are and why.
Okay, that's all. I have no questions.
Okay, great. Well, that's excellent. It sounds like we have a very good idea of kind of what needs to happen next. Gregory, maybe you could throw yourself as a co-owner on this blueprint and help to kind of drive it forward to make sure that information is going in both directions.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll put my name on it and put the task of sharing the screenshots with the date.
Okay, good. That way, when you guys evolve it, especially as the new OSD widget comes around, you can make sure that that gets included and kind of represented in terms of the ability for you to localize it or whatever.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you very much, Gian. This was good. And it looks like we're just about ready to start the next one. So did anyone else have any other things, any questions in the channel or anything before we shut this one off?
Is how am I here?
That was going to be my next question. I don't see him.
Nobody's up yet.
All right. Well, I'm gonna kill the video on this one because I think it's pretty much wrapped, and then we could skip to the RGW bucket stuff if we need to.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, Jen.